In 2006, a researcher at the University of Washington put on a rubber caveman mask, walked outside, and trapped 7 American crows on campus. He let them go a few hours later, no harm done. That should have been the end of it. So why, almost 3 years later, were dozens of crows that had never been touched, never been trapped, still dive-bombing anyone who walked across campus wearing that same caveman mask? Turns out this little guy can do something nobody thought a bird brain could pull off. He can recognize your face, remember what you did to him, and tell his friends about you. Let's get into it. The researcher's name is John Marsluff, and he wasn't trying to start a feud with the crows of Seattle. He was trying to answer a quiet question that scientists had been kicking around for decades. Could a wild bird actually pick a human face out of a crowd and remember what that human did months later? The reasonable bet was that any reaction would fade in a week or two, the way a startled deer eventually wanders back to your yard. So Marsluff designed something simple and a little goofy. He picked a creepy rubber mask, the kind you might grab at a costume shop, and made it the face the crows would associate with one bad experience. He also picked a totally different mask, a Dick Cheney mask, to serve as a neutral control face. Anyone wearing the Cheney mask would walk around campus doing nothing. The caveman wearer would trap 7 crows, band their legs, and release them unharmed within an hour. Right after the release, the 7 trapped birds did exactly what any sensible crow would do. They scolded the caveman mask loudly, dive-bombed it, and tried to chase it across campus. That part wasn't surprising. The surprising part came later. A few weeks later, Marsluff's team walked the same routes wearing the caveman mask again. This time, crows that had not been trapped, not been touched, not been anywhere near the original capture, started scolding too. By the end of the first year, the scolding response in caveman masked walkers had roughly doubled. The Cheney mask still got nothing. Whatever the crows had decided about the caveman face, it was spreading. Now, this is where most stories about animal intelligence stop. A cool experiment, a clever bird, write it up and move on. The University of Washington team kept going. They walked those same routes for the next several years, tracking every single scolding response, every dive bomb, every angry alarm call. And what they found is the kind of result that quietly resets your understanding of what a bird brain is capable of. In a paper published through the National Academy of Sciences, the team reported that the scolding response to the dangerous mask was still going strong 2.7 years after a single capture event. That number is the peer-reviewed floor, not a ceiling. Some of the original 7 crows would have remembered the face for the rest of their lives. But the strict scientific claim is at least 2.7 years of accurate facial recognition from one negative encounter. No retraining, no reminders. Just one bad afternoon locked into memory. And it gets stranger. The crows doing the scolding 3 years in were not the same crows that had been trapped. Some of the trapped birds had already died or moved. The crows now mobbing the caveman face included juveniles that hadn't even been born when the trapping happened. They had learned this face was dangerous from other crows. Pay attention to this next detail because it explains everything. The knowledge was spreading horizontally, parent to offspring and neighbor to neighbor, the way gossip moves through a small town. The team mapped how far this learned fear traveled. By the 5-year mark, the mobbing response had spread at least 1.2 kilometers from the original trapping site. Crows in parts of the campus that the original 7 had never visited were dive-bombing a mask they had never seen attached to a person they had never met. Their information source was other crows. If you're enjoying this and want more stories like it, hit subscribe. There's a lot more strange animal behavior coming on the channel. While all of this was happening above ground, neuroscientists were trying to figure out what kind of hardware lets a wild bird do something this complicated. The answer, when it came, made even the most skeptical bird researchers raise an eyebrow. A study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences measured neuron density inside corvid brains, which is the family that includes crows, ravens, magpies, and jays. Per unit of brain mass, corvids carry roughly twice as many neurons as primate brains of the same size. A crow's brain is small, but it is packed. The closest comparison in terms of brain-to-body ratio is the chimpanzee. So while the grape-sized brain joke is technically true on weight, the actual computational hardware inside is closer to that of an ape than anything you would guess from looking at the outside. There's another piece to this. In mammals like us, complex thinking, planning, and decision-making happen in the prefrontal cortex. Birds don't have a prefrontal cortex. They never evolved one. For a long time, that fact alone was the reason scientists assumed birds couldn't really think. But research published in the Journal of Comparative Neurology found that crows have a brain region called the nidopallium caudolaterale, sitting roughly behind the eyes, that functions as the avian equivalent of a mammalian prefrontal cortex. Different wiring. Same job. The crow evolved its own version of the thinking part of the brain in parallel on a completely separate branch of the tree of life. Which brings the story back to the masks. When researchers later put crows in scanners and showed them threatening human faces versus neutral ones, the imaging picked up distinct activation in the amygdala and the hippocampus. The amygdala handles fear and emotional weight. The hippocampus handles memory and spatial mapping. The crow's brain was doing the exact two things you would expect a mammal brain to do when remembering a dangerous individual. Recognize the face. Tag it as a threat. Store it in a way you can recall later, even from a different angle, in different light, partially obscured by a hood. So when a crow sees you scowling at it from your back porch, something specific is happening inside that little head. Your face is being filed, scored, and shared. If the score is bad enough, your name in crow circles is going to outlive your interest in the encounter by years. The University of Washington team is still walking those routes, by the way. The crows are still watching back. And somewhere on that campus, there are second and third generation crows that have never seen the original caveman, but still know exactly which face means trouble. The real question isn't whether crows hold a grudge. It's whether you've ever done something a crow remembered and never realized you'd been on a watch list the whole time. If you found this one fun, there are more stories like this on the channel. Take care of yourself out there.